Did we just get the best weekend of Big 12 football of the season? I think we did, including the wildest game of the year. I'm Pete Mundo. Heartland College Sports is where you find us. We cover the Big 12, and we are so glad you're here joining us to recap and look back on an amazing Saturday of Big 12 football. Make sure that you are subscribed right now to the channel. We appreciate you doing that. That's the only thing we ask of you as we get the show rolling. We'll talk about every game in the Big 12 from Saturday. And we'll start with what may have been the game of the year, and that is Utah coming back to beat Kansas State at home 51-47. My goodness, it was filled with referee controversies, 2-point conversions going the other way, and big plays all over the place. And the home team, which gave up almost 500 rushing yards to Kansas State, somehow ends up pulling out the win. Unbelievable. Now, let me just address it right out of the gates. Did K-State get hosed a couple of times by the officials? Yes. I know the illegal substitution is nagging at K-State fans. I know that the 2-point conversion, where K-State went for a 2-point conversion up 47-35, and it got returned for an interception 99 yards, and Utah cut it from 47-35 to 47-37. I know that that drives K-State fans nuts, and I get it. The flag that was thrown on the 2-point conversion that would have been defensive holding, that then was somehow magically picked up by the officials, still makes no sense to me, and somebody has to answer for that. I totally agree. Somebody has to answer for that. But K-State could not close the deal on the road. It's also that simple. If Utah went down on their final drive, kicked a field goal, and then won in overtime, I would have a lot more sympathy for the but the refs. But they scored 2 touchdowns on their final 2 drives, 70-plus yards on each drive with 6 minutes left in the game. I can't put that all on the officials. You've got to get a stop. And that KU defense, when it was in crunch time, could not get a stop. Whether it's Devin Dampier's big 59-yard run on that final drive to set up the game-winning touchdown, whatever it was, they couldn't stop it when it mattered most. And that's what ultimately came back to bite Kansas State. I mean, Joe Jackson piles up a K-State program record for a single game, 293 rushing yards. They rushed for 500 yards, and they can't win the game. We can talk about the refs all day, but at some point, you got to figure out how to close those things out, right? I mean, then that right there is what you have to look back on if you're a K-State fan. So that Utah team that played on Saturday is not a college football playoff worthy team. But because they won the game, they still can end up in a Big 12 championship game, and they still could end up in a college football playoff as well. The comeback does look pretty good for them. And K-State played more like the team we thought we were going to get the entire season. That's what they looked like. So this was still a team with a lot of talent. You saw a very emotional Chris Kleiman after the game, where he talked about wanting respect. He's hearing all the stuff about the coaching staff and the players throwing the towel in and quitting, and that's not true, and yada, yada, yada. And I respect all of what he's getting at there, but at the same time, the team is 5-6. There were Big 12 championship expectations this year, and they didn't come close to meeting them. And in fairness, there were injuries as well, right? He dealt with a lot of injuries. He dealt with Dylan Edwards basically walking away from the team. There were things that nobody could have predicted in Manhattan back in August. And they still had a lot of close games this season. But one or too many boneheaded plays has cost them a lot of games. The inability to get a stop has cost them throughout the season. I mean, you've seen this. Whether it's games against Arizona, against Baylor, against Utah yesterday. I mean, this is what has happened to this team. Iowa State, same thing, right? So it's been, unfortunately for them, a season that's been defined by the near misses or the inability to get that one stop when you need it. And that happened again on Saturday against Utah. And for the Utes, obviously, they stay in the college football playoff race. They stay in the Big 12 race. There are still things that they need to get help with. They have about a 26% chance of making the college football playoff now. It would have been 0.1% had they lost the game. So they were done, right? If they lost this game, they were out of the picture for the Big 12 and the playoff. They come back. They win it in impressive fashion. And Kyle Whittingham, he was emotional too after the game, which made me wonder, is he done after the season? It was strange. He was talking about his seniors, and maybe it was just the seniors getting him emotional. But I was surprised by that from Kyle Whittingham. Maybe I've not seen him enough in these post-game press conferences, but he got emotional as well. Chris Kleiman, we've seen him get emotional, but you saw Kyle Whittingham get emotional too, and that's why you just love college football. I mean, what these guys are playing for at this point in K-State's case isn't a whole lot. But these guys are up there. You got grown men on the verge of tears after a wild 51-47 game. That's why you love college football and makes it unlike any other sport out there. So congratulations, Utah. They stay in the mix. 51-47 win over the Kansas State Wildcats. I'm Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Make sure that you are subscribed right now to the channel. We appreciate you being here covering the Big 12 Conference. Let's talk BYU and Cincinnati. That was another highly anticipated game in the Big 12 on Saturday, and BYU was just too much. LJ Martin was just too much. BYU knew that it could run the ball down the throats of Cincinnati. And here's a data point that should tell you exactly what BYU thought of this Cincinnati defense. In the third quarter, BYU had 20 plays. 15 of them were on the ground. Their time of possession in the game was 2-1. They knew that they could go out there and they could run it down the throats of Cincinnati and they could wear them down. And that's exactly what they did. And LJ Martin had a career game, 228 rushing yards, a couple of touchdowns, and they just put that exclamation point on the game late. They could have kneeled it down and left Cincinnati with a 20-14 win. And I know this will get some online controversy. You know what? Style points matter, okay? The committee can tell you whatever it wants about how style points don't matter. Style points matter. Style points make a difference. 26-14 on the road is a lot better than eking out with a 20-14 win. And when you're the Big 12, guess what? You better get some style points. So I hope that Cincinnati fans aren't upset by that. I hope that Scott Satterfield wasn't upset by that after the game, because they should understand that this is really about the Big 12 and the Big 12 getting a couple of teams in. And when you're BYU, and in the last week of college football playoff rankings, you were listed as the first team out, and Utah was the second team out. On behalf of the conference, I think BYU owed it to the rest of the league to try to, frankly, not run up the score, but get the extra score, make it look like a better win, and see if they can get their way into a college football playoff. I have no issue with that. At first, I was like, what are you doing, guys? I mean, you covered the spread. I was happy with the 2.5. All right, I bet BYU minus 2.5, so I was fine with that. They already had the cover. It wasn't about that, obviously. Not that I would ever allege it would have been about that with someone like Kalani Sitake. But then I'm like, okay, college football playoff. Got to make your presence felt. Committee can say this stuff doesn't matter. I don't buy it for a second. They're human beings. They're looking at these games. They're looking at these scores. And 12 points is a lot better than 6. And Cincinnati just had too many missed field goals, right? Missed opportunities. Early on, the fans were all into that game at Nippert Stadium. And as the game went on, the fans were taken out. There just wasn't the juice to these games, or to this game in particular, that there was early in the game. I mean, the fans just were completely taken out of it emotionally. And you could sense it. And there was a little bit of a comeback when they cut it down to a one-score game in the second half, but that was really it. You did not get the emotion. You did not get the enthusiasm from that crowd, from that stadium, that you got in the first half of the game. So it was something that I was watching very closely, analyzing, looking at, and saying, okay, Cincinnati just felt like a team that was not going to be able to make this comeback. And the BYU defense was just too much for them. You combine the offense of Bear Bachmeier, you take that Bachmeier offense, you combine it with L.J. Martin in the rushing game, and you've got an amazing 1-2 punch here. Bear Bachmeier is getting more confidence. He's getting also just better as a true freshman. And you combine L.J. Martin being totally healthy, and you've got an incredible winning formula on your hands here. It's just absolutely amazing to watch these two guys combine it with that defense. You've really got something special going there. I believe that this is a playoff team, a playoff-worthy team. There's no doubt about it in my mind. They are a team that should be in the college football playoff. Now, they just got to finish the job. Listen, they should be able to do it, okay? They've got, who do they have to wrap up the season? UCF to wrap up the season. Then a Big 12 championship game, and you got to at least keep it close against Texas Tech. You can't get blown out again, or they'll find a reason to leave BYU out of the college football playoff. And as for Cincinnati, listen, it's eerily similar to last year. The schedule was backloaded. It was difficult, and what happened? They faltered down the stretch, and that's what you're seeing again from the Cincinnati team. As they play some of their best competition, they are coming up well short. There's still work to do. Is this team better than last year's team? Yes. Is it college football playoff contender worthy? It's not there yet. It's just not. Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports Weekly, part of HeartlandCollegeSports.com. If you're a fan of this league, of any of these teams, of college football, and you want to know more about this conference, make sure you're subscribed right now to the channel. Let's now go to Boulder, Colorado, and talk about this game between Arizona State and the Buffaloes, where it was the Sun Devils dominating 42-17. I picked them minus 7.5, and they obviously covered that and plenty more. And it was because I thought they would just run the ball down the throats of Colorado, and that is exactly what happened. 355 rushing yards, almost 8 yards a carry for Arizona State in this game. Raleek Brown had his best game of the season, 255 yards running on 22 carries. Unbelievable performance for Arizona State in this game. And, you know, Jeff Sims wasn't great. He didn't have one of his better games. But it didn't really matter because they just overwhelmed Colorado, especially on the ground. When the rushing attack difference is 355 to 135, and you've almost doubled them up in yards per rush, you know you're going to be in a pretty darn good spot. And that's what happened for Arizona State in this game. They really weren't great in many aspects of the game on Saturday. But you know what? Colorado's just not all that good. I mean, Kenny Dillingham was like, in the fourth quarter, he gets interviewed on, what was that game, on ESPN2. And he's like, hey, we got 4 turnovers here. We've lost 3 fumbles. We've thrown a pick. That pick led to 3 points from Colorado. The defense held up. At that point, it was still kind of a game. Or it was a game at that point. And in the fourth quarter, Arizona State just ran away with it with 3 touchdowns. But it was a game at that point going into the fourth quarter. Arizona State was only up by 4 points. And Kenny was not happy. And he had a right to not be happy because they were playing sloppy. And this Arizona State team had only given up 10 points off turnovers all season. They gave up 3 on that really bad interception by Jeff Sims, but they overcame it. They overcame some of their big mistakes in this game. So with Arizona State having its most turnovers in almost 2 years, December of 23, to come out and win a game by 25 points, that's darn impressive. And I'll tell you what, for Colorado, Juju Lewis did show me something. I thought he had pretty good pocket presence. I thought, considering he had a depleted offensive line and he was going up against one of the better defensive lines in the Big 12, an Arizona State defensive line that had 6 sacks and 11 tackles for loss, I know this stuff is not going to show up in the box score, but I thought just watching him, for a true freshman in this circumstance, he actually looked more mature and looked more poised and had some better downfield vision than I would have expected from a young guy with a leaky offensive line who was spending most of his night running for his life. So I will give him that. And they've had some weapons at wide receiver all season long. They just really have not been able to get the lines in a place where they can compete in the Big 12. And that's why they're 1-7 in league play and 3-8 overall. And if Deion, and I believe he is willing to turn this thing around and stick through it, he's just got to make changes on that staff. Maybe the whole NFL experiment with guys like Warren Sapp isn't working. Well, there's no evidence to suggest right now that it is. Guys are not really developing. There's talent there. Based on the talent alone, this team should not be 3-8. But they are. In these games, a lot of them are not even close. And now for Arizona State, they're still in the mix to defend their Big 12 championship crown. Can you believe that? But they are. They're in the mix. They're not out of it. Now, they need help going into the final weekend to get back to a Big 12 championship. But given the fact that this team lost its leader, lost its face, lost its potential future first-round NFL draft pick at quarterback in Sam Leavitt, and has won 3 straight and is in the mix for a college football or a Big 12 championship appearance, which means they're in the mix for a college football playoff appearance, and is in the top 25 and is 8-3 and is 6-2 in the league, man, you can't say enough about Kenny Dillingham and what he has done with this team this year in particular. What they've overcome to get to this point has been so impressive. Do I think they get there? No, I don't. If Tech beats West Virginia, BYU beats UCF, that's the championship game, and that's overwhelmingly likely to happen. But the fact that we're even talking about Arizona State in this spot is darn impressive and a real testament to the players and the coaching staff and what they've gotten these guys to buy into in this season without Sam Leavitt. It's been a heck of a lot of fun to watch. Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. Subscribe, like the video. We're glad you're here, as always, as a part of the show. Next up, we're going to talk KU Iowa State for a few minutes. It was senior day in Ames, and it was Iowa State blasting Kansas 38-14. I was on Iowa State minus the 3.5. The picks went 6-1 this weekend, I might add, against the spread. And it was for the very reason that we saw play out on Saturday. Kansas's defense has not held up in recent weeks. In fact, it's in many ways regressed as the season has progressed. And you saw Iowa State, which has been largely a middle-of-the-pack team running the football, pile up 221 yards on the ground. Carson Hansen had himself a really good game, 120 on the ground with a touchdown. Combine that with Abu Sama, and even Flora had himself a couple of big plays. One 38-yard touchdown run in particular stood out. And Rocco Becht had his best game in a while. I mean, Rocco Becht during that 4-game losing streak was really struggling a lot. This was probably Rocco's best game since, what would you say, the Arizona game? Maybe the South Dakota game, but I don't really count the South Dakota game. I'm not going to count an FCS game. So probably the Arizona game. I mean, he really, listen, Rocco has had a rocky, I'm not trying to be corny, it's just the first word that came to mind. Rocco's had a rocky season. He was not great in games against Cincinnati or Colorado or BYU, Arizona State. He really struggled. I mean, he wasn't even great against TCU. He really struggled for a large part of the Big 12 season. But he had a huge bounce-back game on Saturday. He needed that on senior day, sending those guys out with a win. And, you know, he's got one more year, but I think it was important to him. It's always important to Matt Campbell. You want to talk about a guy that gets emotional. I didn't see it on Saturday. I didn't watch any of the pregame ceremonies for Iowa State, but Matt Campbell's always, I mean, he's a big softy on these senior days, man. I mean, the guy starts bawling, it seems like, when they're introducing his seniors. But that's because he's built an actual program. He's not a guy who's built a collection of players. He builds a program in an era when it's harder than ever to do. Guys want to play for Campbell. They want to play for Iowa State. They want to be in Ames. And at a time in college football's history when that is a rarity, I'm all about it. Matt Campbell can be a big softy. I'll pass him the Kleenex on the sidelines when they're introducing his seniors. I'm all about it. I think it's great. I have no issues whatsoever with it. I'm just saying, he does get emotional. And I love everything about it because it defines what he's about and what this program is about as well. And what you saw on Saturday was a team that said, you know what? We may have not met our expectations this year. We may have had this 4-game losing streak. We may have come up short of what our goals were after we got to a Big 12 championship last year. But Iowa State is 7-4. Iowa State needs to win at Oklahoma State, who hasn't won a Big 12 game this year, to finish 8-4. For a team like Iowa State to look back on an 8-4 season and say it's a disappointment, that tells you where the program's at, all right? Now, for Kansas, I heard Lance Leipold say after the game that we don't have a player problem, we have a coaching problem. And I appreciate him falling on the sword. But the reality is also this. KU was a better and more talented team last year. They put guys in the NFL last year that they're not going to put in this year. They had talent, but this team kind of felt like 6-6, 7-5 in a best-case scenario. And while 6-6 is probably not likely, they got to play Utah next week. 5-7 to 7-5, somewhere in there, felt like what this team was. I know there was a lot of hype because Jalen Daniels was coming back. But, last year the problem is Jalen Daniels just didn't get going until it was too late. This year he was healthy, but he didn't really have the pieces around him, especially on defense. That's where they struggled a lot this season. And you saw it again on display on Saturday. And, I don't think that the players necessarily are as good as Lance Leipold's making them out to be. I think last year's collection, top to bottom, was a better collection of just pure talent. So this has been, no doubt, a disappointing season for the Kansas Jayhawks. They've lost 4 of 5, and 3 of those 4 losses have been by 24 points at least. Tech, K-State, and now Iowa State, all losses by at least 24 points. If you want to rag on how big these losses have been, we can have that conversation for sure, no doubt about it. But all in all, I just don't think this team had the collection of players that it needed to have to compete atop the Big 12. And that's what you've really seen as this season has progressed for KU. I mean, secondary has struggled all year long as well. Rocco Becht has not been good. On Saturday, he looked like Patrick Mahomes out there. So that just gives you a glimpse into where some of the struggle points were for KU this year, and the secondary was definitely atop that list for KU. And Jalen Daniels just was not going to overcome all that. There's no way he was going to overcome all of that. So for KU, you do not want to miss a bowl game for a second straight year based on the investment that you've had in that program. But we'll have to see how it plays out there because Utah is not going to be easy coming next Saturday because especially when you know they have been woken up after that near miss against Kansas State. Next up, let's talk about what happened in the Baylor-Arizona game. Arizona winning 41-17. So think about this. Dave Aranda gets announced on Friday he's coming back. And on Saturday, this team had a little bit of life in that first half. They actually were leading Arizona at halftime. Arizona makes the halftime adjustments. They come out. They blow out Baylor in the second half, outscore them 27-0. That was just a thing of beauty to watch from Arizona defensively. And that was the last thing that Dave Aranda needed after he gets a vote of confidence on Friday morning from his own president. And the story to me is how much fun this Arizona team is to watch. I'll get back to Baylor. But this Arizona team is just fun to watch. They really are. This is a team that when you watch them play, it's defense first, it's the running game, and then it's Noah Fafita being efficient and good enough to get the ball going through the air. That's what makes this awesome. And look at the second half for Baylor's offense. Remember, this is the best passing attack in the Big 12. This Baylor offense came in with the number one passing game in yards per game in the Big 12. And look at what this Arizona defense did to them. Third quarter, 3 yards or 3 plays, minus 3 yards, punt. 3 plays, 1 yard, punt. They are minus 2 yards in the third quarter. Fourth quarter, interception, fumble, turnover on downs, interception, turnover on downs, end of game. I mean, that was just unbelievable for the Arizona defense going up against Sawyer Robertson and this top-ranked pass offense for the Baylor Bears. And I told you going into the game that the Baylor offense versus the Arizona defense was going to be where this game was determined. And Arizona, I thought, was going to hold up its end of the bargain at home, and they did it. They did exactly that. And they manhandled up front as well. That Baylor offensive line, they had 10 tackles for loss in the game, 4 passes defended. It was just an incredible performance for this Arizona team that's winning games in ways that a lot of people don't expect. You think about Arizona football, and you largely think about the offensive side of the ball. Well, this team is winning with nasty defense, an incredible pass defense in particular, great secondary, and a run game that's playing pretty darn well too. You had Risano and Mahdi. They're continuing to make a nice 1-2 punch as Risano's gotten healthy. And even Fafita adding 33 yards on the ground on Saturday. So this really is a fun team to watch. And in many ways, like Texas Tech, it's a team that's winning in ways that it traditionally has not. Brent Brennan has now doubled his win total from last season. They went 4-8, thought he might be getting fired after 1 year. They said, no, we're standing by our guy. And now he's 8-3. And between Arizona and Arizona State, you've got some of the best football being played in that state. And now you've got, the Territorial Cup coming up here next week. And that's going to be a big game. I mean, I can't wait. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I'm excited about it. I think it's great for the Big 12 Conference to have that game in this league every single year. And it's going to have some juice to it. Arizona State is still in the mix to get to a Big 12 championship. And Arizona's looking to finish 9-3. I mean, there's plenty on the line for one of the underrated rivalry games, and not just the Big 12, but all of college football. And for Baylor, I mean, if you are Baylor president Linda Livingstone, are you feeling great about your endorsement of Dave Aranda going into 26 after that performance on Saturday? I know you want to save the money. I get wanting to spend the money on players. I get Baylor's 10th on the pecking order if they fire their head coach. I'm not saying they should. But, boy, you've got to get something here with Dave Aranda in the offseason that suggests change is going to come. Because if not, with this collection of talent, with this team that many picked to win the Big 12, to have the kind of season they have had, it's an utter disappointment. And there is no way to spin that. Baylor has to win against Houston to make a bowl game for a team that, like Phil Steele, had winning the Big 12. And I'm not picking on Phil. There's a lot of us. I'm saying out of respect for Phil, one of the best in the business, picking Baylor to win the Big 12. And they're just trying to sniff a bowl game when all is said and done. What an absolute letdown of a season for the Baylor Bears. There's no way to spin it. Let's talk TCU beating Houston 17-14 on Saturday. You know, this game was TCU in a nutshell. All right? Great first quarter. They look like a team that can compete atop the Big 12. They're running all over Houston. Couple of touchdowns. They look great on offense. Even the defense is playing well. And then the rest of the game happens. It's inconsistent. It's sloppy. It's filled with mistakes. They scored 14 points. They had 166 yards in the first quarter. And after that, they got 3 points. No points in the second, no points in the third, and then a field goal in the fourth quarter. That was it. Did Houston's defense play well? Did they play better? Did they adapt to what was going on? Yes, they did. But, man, this is just, if you've watched TCU football, this is what drives you nuts. Even in a win. I know they're 7-4, but even in a win, you're watching this game, and it's like watching two different teams, depending on the quarter. They couldn't close it out against Iowa State a couple of weeks back. They're winning that game by double digits. They blow it in the fourth quarter. They get crushed at BYU. They come out against Houston. They look like, hey, where's this team been all season? And then for the final three quarters, you get the team that you've gotten on and off for the last few weeks, which was mediocrity, which was mistake-driven, and just made you want to bang your head against the wall. I mean, the second quarter in particular, interception, fumble. Those were Baylor's offensive drives. Now, the good news is they were able to play pretty solid defense, which I'll give them credit for. But, I mean, third quarter, punt, interception, punt. It's like Josh Hoover had some dumb throws in this game. Had 3 picks overall. And some of that was on him. It wasn't always someone else's fault. I mean, the one that he threw up to McAllister that was like a 50-50 ball, I don't mind that one because I'm going to take my shot and I'll take a 50-50 ball with the guy who may be the best wide receiver in the Big 12 and Eric McAllister. But there's too many times when this team just makes boneheaded mistakes, and it's got to frustrate the heck out of you if you're a TCU fan. But they get a win, and I picked them to win outright. And obviously they were an underdog, so cover the spread. Because I just thought they had the horses. Now, if you told me they would have only scored 17 points, I wouldn't have felt as good about it. But that is a testament to the defense that has stepped up and has actually been pretty solid, especially against the pass. You saw Connor Wigman struggle. And I've said throughout the season that Connor Wigman using his legs is good for Houston, and he actually did that very well on Saturday. He had 15 carries for 114 yards. It just wasn't enough. But they were playing their best football against Arizona and Arizona State when he was actually using his legs, and he did that on Saturday. It just wasn't good enough for this Houston team. And there were too many turnovers, and, I question this move too. TCU doesn't take the 3 points late in the game. They give Houston a chance. I know they wanted to get the first down and basically put the game on ice, but kick the field goal. Go up by 6. You're deep in Houston territory. Make them score a touchdown. Your defense is playing well, so make them score a touchdown. Like that from Sonny Dykes, I didn't understand either. But there's been a lot of things from TCU that I have not understood this year. This has been one of the more confusing teams in the Big 12. And, they could go 8-4. I mean, they're 7-4 right now. They're wrapping up the season next week against Cincinnati. They could finish 8-4. It's possible. But there is a lot of head scratching going on with how they got to this point. And you take the win and you move on. And as for Houston, they're going to fall out of the top 25. And in many ways, like Cincinnati, their schedule got tougher on the back half, and they started to struggle a bit more. We'll wrap it up here with Oklahoma State coming up short against UCF. Oh, they were so close to that first Big 12 win. They were up 14-0 at the break. And they go scoreless in the second half while UCF put 17 points on the board. There's not a lot you're going to say here outside of what could have been for Oklahoma State. It's why I picked them to cover the 14. I didn't think that UCF was worthy of being a 13.5-point favorite over anyone in the Big 12, even Oklahoma State. You saw Zane Flores, especially on that first drive, lead this team down the field, 13 plays, 75 yards, get a touchdown. They put another touchdown on the board before halftime with a great long drive, spread the ball around, methodical. What was it, 10, 11, 12 plays, something like that? And you're like, man, they're going to do it. But what happens? UCF scores a touchdown, its first points on its first play from scrimmage in the second half. That gives them all the momentum. Their defense locks down the Cowboys from there on out. They get one more touchdown early in the first or fourth quarter, and then they put the field goal up one drive later, and Oklahoma State's offense just can't get anything going. And then you had the Zane Flores interception in the final minute of regulation to end the game. I mean, UCF can still get to a bowl game if they beat BYU on the road next week. Do not hold your breath on that one. All right, just don't do it. It's not going to be worth your time. I'm just saying, it's not. And you've got an Oklahoma State team that is also wrapping the season next weekend against Iowa State in what will be a team that is trying to avoid going 0-9 in the Big 12 for a second straight season and is on the verge of being 1-11. That new coaching hire cannot come soon enough in Stillwater. Whew, I'm Pete Mundo. Hey, make sure you're subscribed right now to the channel if you are not yet. It's all we ask you to do to help grow the show. If you want to leave a super thanks as well, you can do that if you're on YouTube. And on the podcast, hey, I know some of you are listening right now and you have not dropped the 5-star rating and review. Please do it. It'll take you 30 seconds. It's a Christmas gift to your favorite Big 12 podcaster. How about that? Can we call it that? That's all I'm asking for. It doesn't cost you anything. Think of it as a Thanksgiving, holiday, Christmas gift to me. Thank you, guys. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. And go Big 12.